Why did you post this?
I don't know. Why did you do that?
None of your business, you rat.
Why, too cool to explain what a nut job you are?
Well, at least I'm a nut job who creates constant wind slashes and fly across the city, not something that looks like a vomit fluff a cat threw up.
You mean how he turned into a flying pizza cutter for 2 meters? Real fucking original look, by the way. Oh, and you look like an upside down Miraidon, which means you look like an upside down dick when you fly like that.
Well, you're short.
Oh, you gonna go there?
Wait, I take it back.
I was the acceptable average height of 5'7", by the way, before your aunt and her friends turned me into a fluff as they were killing all the Conrians because some dumbass decided to play God. Oh, and guess which other dumb fucker did that last week? You motherfucker, and you were born that short while I was turned into short. Oh, remember that upside down dick like you were looking like? Yeah, well, now that you brought up height, if I remember correctly, Miraidon's long as shit while you're short as fuck, so you're just a small pee-pee pizza cutter looking ass motherfucker.
You kiss your mother with that mouth?
Does your mom even kiss you? You're just a small pee-pee pizza cutter looking ass motherfucker. Elemental skill. I'm cooler than my mom. Let's look at the description here. Concentrates the power of the winds to break free from the shackles of the earth. Which is a direct translation to, I decided to fly up because I was sick of people looking down on me. The Wanderer crouches down, gritting his teeth, putting everything he's got into his stomach, and then lets out a fat one, dealing animo damage and gains the ability to fly. But in reality, he is farting constantly. During this state, his hat is now that ring thing, and his normal and charge attacks are now converted to Kugo Fushodan and Kugo Tofukai. Why the fuck did they name these? Since that's gonna be impossible to remember, we're gonna call this Fusroda and Tofuka. The damage from Fusroda and Tofuka damage is considered normal and charge attack damage. And you probably would have noticed this by now if you have the ability of sight and can see that the animation is exactly the same but bigger. Now, as much as the Wanderer would like to look down on his enemies like how they look down on him, he can't stay airborne forever. There's only so much gas in that tiny body. There's also something called the Kugoryoku bar. Basically, this is flight stamina, but in reality, it's his fart stamina. All of Wanderer's movements while he's farting drains this special stamina bar, including sprinting, lifting, or even staying still. His charge attacks, however, does not consume this stamina because that's not his fart. That's his fart. Unfortunately, the cooldown begins only when he's out of the state, so use this time to rotate your teammates so he can do big damage and finally stay at a height where no enemies can touch. I guess he's still too short. Elemental Burst. I decided to name this after a move from one of the best soccer animes of all time. The one with intense, emotional expression, looking like 120 FPS gameplay, which is for some reason not available for PC on Genshin, and colorfully displayed animation, Blue Inazuma 11, baby! Coincidentally, this move is also called the Hurricane, which also stomps on the ball, but in this case, fart. The Wanderer uses the power of Venti's fart, creating a dense fart ball, then stomps on it to blow shit up with AoE animo damage. Apparently, when he kicks the fart ball, he imagines that the fart is the face of someone he hates the most. Oh wow, that's unexpected. Moving on to his passives. Passive 1. What the fuck is this even saying? Now, I'm sure this is confusing because the description is using a bunch of made-up words to explain what the ability does. It's like doing your taxes for the IRS even though you live in a different country, you know? Like what the fuck is this even saying? Do not worry, my friends. After Google translating the word accelerate in 16 different languages to figure out that it was originating from the word sprint, I have deciphered the code of this description. When the Wanderer's normal attack hits, his fart, he has a 16% chance to gain an effect that shoots off 4 fart arrows that deals animo damage based on 35% of his attack when he sprints midair, and he doesn't spend fart stamina. Every time you fail to gain this effect, your chance of obtaining this effect increases by 12%. You're welcome. But how do you know whether you have this effect or not? Well, if you look carefully, there's this little arrow symbol that glows up. This means that the Wanderer has charged his belly with extra gas. So as soon as you see this, press that sprint button, you'll spend no stamina, and you'll shoot off fart arrows as damage. Pretty nifty. Next passive, Fart Buff. Wanderer's fart gains buffs based on which elements it comes into contact with. Fire element increases your attack by 30%, Hydro element increases your fart stamina by 20, Electro element allows you to generate energy with your fart attacks, and Cryo element increases your crit rate by 20%. And of course, these buffs only applies to the generator of these farts. The Wanderer's fart can gain 2 element buffs at once, which is very nice, but it can be a little tricky to use because 2 elements can't be on the same enemy at once, so you'll only be able to gain 2 buffs when surrounded by enemies. And from what I can tell, the buff stays forever unless you switch out or, fart on something else. And finally, one of the most useful talents I've ever seen. Event level money reduction on ascending catalysts and bows. Yeah, I thought it was like XP actually. Well, that happiness was shorter than I expected. Speaking of short, this short guy's artifacts. Like his height, we're short on options for his artifact sets, but that makes this easier to explain. As you all know by now, the Wanderer is another selfish DPS that focuses on raw animo damage that is produced from his normal and charge attack. And thanks to the fact that he's an animo catalyst user, you can technically use him like Heizo as a reaction driver, but I think Heizo does a much better job with this because he punches at a fast speed, while the Wanderer is stuck with 3 hits. Also, none of his abilities take advantage of Elemental Mastery other than the fact that he's an animo unit, so building him like a raw crit DPS character is probably the way to go. Anyways, if you just started playing, you are very far away from his artifacts and ascension materials, so your choices are pretty short like his shorts. You'd want a Berserker set for critting as often as possible, and the Martial Artist set so he can master the art of fart slicing. And since the Viridescent set domain is like right there in Mondstadt, maybe you can grab like a 2P set if you have leftover resin. I wouldn't recommend going ham on it, especially if you can't grab the 5-star one, but if you've already progressed this far, then yes, the new artifact set was pretty much made for his digestive system. The 2P set raises animo damage, and the 4P set raises his speed, normal attack, and charge attack and plunge attacks by 40%. And trust me, 40% is big. However, completing a new 4P set is like impossible, so if you've suffered in this domain just like I did by grabbing god rolls on the wrong artifact, then the 4-piece Shimenawa technically does work. You'll never see this animation of him stepping on you though, so for some people, this is a devastating trade. But if you don't care, then yeah, go ahead. This is still better though. But if you still want to see his animation while not having this set completed, then just build him like an old Chao. 2-piece attack and 2-piece animo damage is pretty easy to build. For his stats, we want crit and attack. So attack for Hourglass, animo damage bonus for Goblet, and then crit for Circlet. But do remember, his Ascension stat gives you crit rate, and his fart reacting with Cryo also gives him crit rate. So for most of you, I recommend crit damage. I also think Energy Recharge isn't a mandatory thing for him because most of his damage comes from his normal attacks, and his burst isn't too necessary. Although I will admit, this is one of the best burst animations in the game. Moving on to Books and Rock. His best in slot, of course, is the weapon that was literally made for him. You know this. And what's special about this bell is that it creates a soothing noise that helps his digestive system to fart notoriously. It increases his crit damage by 44% while also increasing his attack speed, normal attack damage buff that increases every second after you fart, and even more normal attack damage buff by normal attacking that can go up to 48%? Wow, this is actually a proper DPS catalyst. Wow, finally. Holy shit, I'm gonna give this a Ningguang. I don't give a fuck about him. Then we have the rest of the 5-star catalyst. I have level 90'd most of the catalysts in the game for complicated reasons that has nothing to do with simping on one character, but in my experience, I think Memory of Dust is one of the better ones. Hitting buffs your attack, which he is good at, and being inside a shield, which you're good at, doubles the buff. So it's pretty good. If you do have an attack buffer on your team though, Lost Prayer is most likely better. It gives you high crit rate, and for a greedy little rascal like this guy who hoards his time on the field, this book rewards you for that with more elemental damage. Now we have these two as well. Atlas is great in general, but this puzzle given by Zhongli's dead girlfriend is better with a shield. Kagura makes your stat looks nice, but the Wanderer can't fart 3 times in a row, so too bad I guess. There aren't too many 4-star options. I mean, there is a few, but most of them are kind of mediocre. Of course, the Widths is probably one of the best 4-star weapons for him. The crit is nice, the buffing is great, but there is one tiny flaw. Actually, it's a pretty big flaw. Same issue I have when I use this on Ningguang. It's the Elemental Mastery. This is like Smithicone for the Wanderer. I mean, at least he can use it kinda. I mean, he farts like 24/7, he can really use it. But most likely, you build crits on him, and Swirl simply can't crit, guys. And Smithicone is pretty much useless for him. Then we have the Solar Pearl for the Battle Pass gang. This is the most consistent 4-star weapon, giving you crit, normal attack buff by farting, farting buff by normal attack, attacking just needs your credit card information, while this one will come to you for free by ruining your day on a character banner. Like, why the fuck? For free-to-plays, there are a few options, but frankly, the options are pretty bad, to be honest. Dodoquatales, you need a time machine. Blackcliff, you need to spend your dignity points for a not-so-good in boss runs ability, and then the Frost Bearer. In terms of stats, it's okay. Ability-wise, it doesn't really support the Wanderer's damage, it just does damage with him, so it doesn't really do much for him, but it's still free, and free is good. Finally, teams. We need to talk about Farazan first. I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name right. Hopefully I am. Farazan. She's like the Goro of animal units. Farazan's skill doesn't do much. Her burst, however, reduces the animal resistance and increases the animal damage of your team. And leveling your burst also increases the animal damage that you receive. Her burst, however, has a mind of its own, which is fucking annoying. Like, stay in one place, asshole. But she does have a neat little passive that allows her skill to do the same. When you use Farazan's skill and shoot a charge shot, it will create an AoE that applies the same effect as her burst, but only the resistance shred part, not the buff. But it only lasts for 4 seconds, so you kind of do have to rely on the burst to consistently shred animal resistance and apply yourself with animal buffs. But here it says that the resistance shred is applied to nearby enemies, and the buff is also applied to nearby allies. And if this is true, I don't have to be right under that annoying thing to receive the animal damage buff. So surely the enemies don't have to be right under that annoying thing to receive the animal resistance shred, right? Well, for the arrow, you do need to touch them with the AoE for the resistance shred, so I think you also might need to hit them with the burst as well. Like, I can test it, but I can't tell because the enemies are dying so quickly and this shit is impossible to control. But I'm pretty sure you also need to hit them with the burst if you do want that resistance shred. I'm pretty sure. If I'm wrong, someone can let me know. But if you are lucky enough to have her at C6, you won't worry about this because that charged arrow thing that she fires will now be fired with your normal attacks every 3 seconds, which is kind of annoying because it's really good, but it's behind a C6. Now, as for the rest of your team, supports that deals damage when they're not on the field is probably something you want to look for, like Yelan, this little rascal, Rosaria, Fischl, Beidou, everyone's demon. Reactions aren't really necessary for the Wanderer for his damage. It becomes more important when his fart reacts, because the fart buff is pretty good for him, but unfortunately, you can only get 2 and only 1 against most bosses, so you gotta fart wisely. And I say that the fart reacts, but it's not really reacting, they just need to be like near him when he farts. Then after that, you can choose an attack buffer based on what element you need more. If you don't have his main weapon though, and have an attack percentage weapon like Memory of Dust or the Scoured Atlas, most of the time you're probably not gonna need a buffer, so you can probably fill out the last spot with a normal attack buffer like Candace or Yoon. If you do have like a crit rate weapon or a crit damage weapon, then yeah, buffers are fine. But when I say buffers, I don't only mean like one guy, it's Bennett. You can use Sara if you want, but her buffing only stays for 6 seconds, which I'm pretty sure is way shorter than the Wanderer's farting duration. And since you don't need a constant elemental application on this team, you probably don't have to worry whether your healers or shield units apply elements or damage constantly. But that is pretty much it for the video, guys. If you guys happen to pull for him, I hope you do get him. If you happen to skip him because you don't like him, well, as someone who actually doesn't like Scaramouche that much, his animations are clean as fuck, and he's really fun to play, so maybe forgive him a little if you do decide to pull on this banner. Again, good luck on your banners. I hope you guys have a great day. I'll see you guys next time.